A little girl kidnapped, raped, and murdered in a case that has stumped investigators for more than 40 years. But now, armed with new DNA evidence, police in Cobb County are taking another look.
And tonight, we wanted to show how Debbie Lynn Randall died from a new perspective, her own.
Parents raped by telephone.
Debbie Lynn Randall's father still has every newspaper article written about her disappearance.
Clues still lacking in Deborah's slaying.
He even has the front page picture of his little girl's body being carried out of the woods. She was only 9 years old.
But it tears you up. Literally tears you up. I'm sorry. But it's just like taking a big chunk out of your body.
John Randall fears he will die without ever knowing who took that chunk. Debbie Lynn's mother died of leukemia last month. This is where Debbie Lynn was last seen alive. Today, it's a bus terminal. But we hired a graphic artist to help us understand what it looked like on January 13th, 1972. At that time, Debbie Lynn's family lived in an apartment complex on one side of the street, and the laundromat where she was abducted sat on the other.
I think it was like 57 feet from her front door to the laundromat.
57 feet was all Debbie Lynn's kidnapper needed. Her mother found the box of soap she tried to bring home scattered on the ground. Detective Morris Nix was a teen when it happened.
I remember vividly. I came in the house, it was on the news. People were afraid, they were angry, and it was frightening.
Debbie Lynn loved dolls, and since this is her story, that is how we portray her.
I don't know that I'll ever look at a Barbie doll again that I don't think about her.
Nick says a man in a dark 1950s pickup truck grabbed Debbie Lynn and forced her into it. There was an eyewitness.
I know she was kicking and screaming.
Sandra Walker was 12 years old at the time. She didn't want to talk on camera, but says she remembers almost getting run over by the man as he sped away. And she says she can still feel his eyes looking back at her through the rearview mirror.
Her brother was at the store handing out flyers, if you had seen her, that she had come up missing. And that's when I put two and two together.
And she still carries the heartache of what happened that day.
I've had people say that you got to let it go, and I can't. I mean, that little girl didn't deserve any. She deserved to have a life.
Debbie Lynn was found 16 days later during a mass search of the woods. It was cold and rainy.
She was abducted in one area, attacked in another area, redressed, and then her body was taken to even another area on Johnson Ferry Road.
Police say Debbie Lynn had been found raped and suffocated. The killer likely using her own coat to muffle her screams. Nick still visits her grave.
Whoever was involved in this is a psychopath. When Debbie took her last breath, she was looking into the face of a monster.
When Nix volunteered for the Cobb County Cold Case Unit, he asked to work on Debbie Lynn's case. He's determined to do what police 46 years ago could not: find her killer.
I still think that it's possible to solve this case.
Marietta police had preserved the evidence well, and for the first time, investigators have a DNA profile. The suspect, a white male.
I don't even think about it.
Debbie Lynn's father has no words for the man that killed his daughter, but overflows with emotion, knowing she has not been forgotten.
I loved her. I'll always love her.
Such an emotional and powerful story. The artwork that you saw, we have actually taken those drawings and we have turned it into a graphic novel. And what's really exciting is that if you go to your 11 Alive app right now on your phone, you can see the graphic novel as well. We've also posted it online. This artist has done such an amazing job. Do we know any more about the killer? Police believe that he was a construction worker. They think that because of the type of truck he was driving, as well as some of the dirt that was found on her clothes.
And Rebecca, what about that DNA evidence? Any luck?
So far, the DNA has not led them to the killer, but it has helped them rule out several suspects. They say what they need now are some new leads to chase, and they are hoping that this helps trigger some of those memories. I'm standing near the spot where a 9-year-old Marietta girl was kidnapped more than 40 years ago. We've teamed up with a graphic artist because at the time of her disappearance, this bus terminal wasn't here. That little girl was later found raped and murdered, yet her killer remains a mystery. That's why digital reporter Jessica Knoll and I wanted to take a different look at the case, but this time through her eyes.
I really hope that this encourages somebody to remember something that maybe they had forgotten or didn't want to talk about.
Freelance artist Amanda Wood has spent months drawing Debbie's final hours. You had to sit and think about what this little girl went through.
Yes, I did. I cried a lot. It was really upsetting.
It was really important for me in those drawings for it to be Debbie's story. So I wanted it to reflect the way that if she could tell this story, that she would.
Because this is a story of a frightened little girl, we made her killer a monster.
Seeing that, it breaks your heart.
And in this story, Debbie, who loved to play with dolls, is represented by one. And not just any doll.
He had just tossed her aside like a rag doll into these woods after he did what he did to her. Just seemed to personify and emulate how he treated her.
During the attack, Debbie suffered a number of injuries. Band-Aids mark where.
She didn't understand probably what was happening to her. A little girl who has a boo-boo or an injury, that's what she would think. I need a Band-Aid because I'm hurt.
Yeah, it was a good way of showing that bad things had happened and there were pains without being grotesque. There was a time where I shouted that I hated doing this at my screen, but it was very emotionally taxing.
But Amanda says feeling Debbie's terror is important to drawing it.
If you're actually feeling it, then you know to put this little line right here, you know how sagged the shoulder should be. Or it's a lot like acting, probably, I assume. You do all the things and then you capture it.
But she says the hardest picture to draw was Debbie's family, who live with the violent memory and mystery of her death.
You know they think about it just all the time. It doesn't go away for them. And the brother and those girls at the laundromat. Everybody was, and the detective, he's thinking about it all the time too. And now we are.
Join us next Sunday as we use those sketches along with interviews from her family, even an eyewitness, as we piece together Debbie Lynn Randall's story, the doll and the monster.